Welcome to Nuanced Beauty, because the world is nuanced and we think that's beautiful. Hi guys, welcome back to Nuanced Beauty. Today I have another interview for you all. I am bringing on Tracy. Tracy is a photographer here in Florida, and I believe she has many faithful clients that she has from back in her days in Texas. And it's a random story how we met, so I figured I would share. Bill was walking around our neighborhood wearing a company t-shirt. And Tracy's husband, Brian, saw him walking and asked if he was a mariner. And so, of course, they got to chatting. And it turns out Brian is also an alumni from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. And their family just happened to be renting a home in our neighborhood while their house was being finished out. We've hung out a few times since, moving here to Florida and while they lived here in the neighborhood. And I've never dug into Tracy's professional life as a photographer. So this is my chance to ask her lots of questions about photography and have you all come alongside our conversation and learn all the things about life and stuff as a photographer. So with that, Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah. So how did you get started in photography?
It's kind of a long, roundabout way of that I kind of fell into this career path, I would say. I took a couple of photography classes in high school, like way back in the day, pre-2000, dating myself. And, I loved it. I loved art classes of all kinds, and photography was my favorite. We shot on film, so I loved going into the darkroom and, kind of really watching images come to life. I took another class, a photography class in college when I studied abroad in Florence, Italy.
Oh, cool.
I figured I saved all my elective classes for that semester. And, if I could have taken 4 photography classes, I would have. I just loved it. It was the perfect spot for it. After that, I'm a young working professional living in New York City. Like, photography definitely fell by the wayside. And then my husband and I moved to London for his job for a few years. And that's really when I kind of reignited my passion for photography. We were traveling a ton, seeing the sights, going all over Europe. And for our wedding,
that's a fun place to do photography.
Yes, yeah. It was. I mean, if you're going to start somewhere, right? It's a really cool place to start. And for our wedding, actually, my husband's 2 brothers gave us a, Canon 6. I don't think it was a 60. The 60 wasn't out. Anyways, they give us like a
really
real,
nice
professional, nice camera.
Okay.
So that was super fun. And I mean, it had been years and years and years since I had taken any kind of photography class. And now I was shooting on digital, right? I had moved from film in high school to digital. So I took a few classes just to kind of reacquaint myself with how to shoot on a camera of that caliber. And, did a lot of travel photography, had a little very unprofessional travel blog that I loved.
Nice. This was like the mid 2000s or
yes,
early
yeah. It was
2010s?
probably about 2010. So
Perfect.
Yeah, a little bit later. And then, at that point I had been interested in, maybe photographing children. I was newly pregnant and we knew that we were going to be moving back to the US very soon. And, a lot of our friends had little kids. So while I was in London, I just kind of, just for free, just for fun, started photographing my friends' kids, and I loved it. So shortly after, we moved to Houston, Texas, again for my husband's job. Started our family. And, I just spent that whole first year that my daughter was born, practicing as much as I could on her, on friends, their kids. And when she was 1, so in 2013, I officially launched my business, Tracy Lynn Photography.
Okay.
So it's been about 10 years now. But yeah, that was kind of a roundabout way of starting it. In my old career, I used to work in the fashion industry. I did fashion production, and there was none of that in Houston either. So, kind of confronted with having this passion and also suddenly not having a career.
Hmm.
I thought, well, hey, you know what? Let's try and make this work. And yeah, rest is kind of history.
Nice. And so you said 2013, so we're going on almost like a decade.
It's 10 years. Yeah, I celebrated 10 years this year. So that is crazy, but very exciting.
Nice. So when you got into photography, it sounded like you cued into um doing child portraits. But is there any particular reason that you landed in this as your main style or medium?
Honestly, it was kind of just the best fit and also what I loved. As I
Okay.
mentioned, when I started, I was newly pregnant, right? So we were just about to start our family. We were, I don't know if I was necessarily baby crazy, but it was like at the
Okay.
forefront of my mind all the time. Our friends were having kids, we were about to have a kid. It was our whole life, whereas maybe six 6 to 7 years earlier, it was all weddings, right? All of our friends were getting married. We were getting married. It was,
Uh-huh.
how your life kind of goes through these phases.
Yeah.
Um,
It
so,
was
and
at
I
the
just
forefront of
found,
your mind.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. It's just kind of in front of you all the time. And I found also that the style, the format of doing a family session or newborns, I specialize in family photography and lifestyle newborn photography.
Okay.
And both of those things are, usually between like 1 and 3 hours. So that's how long the shoot takes. So it was a
Okay.
way for me to have a job that a couple times a week, I was spending a few hours a week shooting. And then the rest I could do from home. I could spend it
Mm.
with my, toddler, at home and later on my second born. And, I didn't have to be away for the whole day, away from my family. And especially with a newborn and a toddler, it's
The
really, really hard to do that.
Yeah, or
And
getting childcare lined up or yeah, that makes sense.
it's hard.
For
So
Would that kind of be, I was going to ask, what do you love most about your job? And it sounds like maybe that component of being able to like do this from wherever and being able to accommodate your family life.
yeah, that's a huge perk, right? And also, I mean, one reason that I kind of was drawn to it in the beginning also is because um kids are funny. Like they are hilarious. And every time I work with kids, I learn something new. I'm laughing hysterically. They're just really, really funny, especially the ones that are pretty young, because as you know, you have small children, like they have basically zero
Their
filter.
personalities are blooming. Yeah, and there's no filter. That's a very good point too.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I got more and more into my photography journey, my business evolved, and I evolved as a mother and a photographer. I really loved family photography, newborn photography, also not only to focus on the kids, but to focus on the moms. I think this is such a beautiful way to do a couple of things for mothers. One, take the pressure off of them for an hour or a couple of hours. When we're shooting, everything is under my instructions, right? Like I'm the one
Mhm.
who's asking the kids to do this. I'm the one who's, telling the jokes. I'm the one that has to make them laugh and keep them happy, right? The moms can just literally sit back and relax and enjoy. And that's mainly what I want my families to do when we're together is just have a good time. Like I don't care if everybody's looking at the camera. I want to capture images of you genuinely interacting with your family and having a good time.
Mhm.
And, just really focusing on mom and her bond with the kids because so many moms don't have nice pictures of themselves with their kids,
Right? Yeah. Or
unless their
they're just like
partner
in a
is
hurry or yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. My husband, God bless him, he's pretty good about taking pictures, but once
Not
a year,
everybody is.
not everybody is. And also like, it's just nice to be, I look at it a way of, kind of pampering yourself a little bit. Like you deserve to have gorgeous images of you and your kids and your partner, like to show you as a
Uh-huh.
family unit. So really, yeah, I love the focusing on kids. I mean, they are hilarious. And then also, really focusing on mom as well.
Okay. And what would you say you enjoy least about the job?
Um, let's see. The least about it, gosh, actually taking pictures and doing the photography part is such a tiny part of my whole business. It's maybe like 10 or 15%. All the rest of the time, I'm editing. I'm doing all the business things that you have to do. So I think
Uh-huh.
probably
Okay.
my least favorite is
It sounds like
taxes.
the administrative, like not
Yeah.
interacting with people part.
Yes, exactly. Kind of
Okay.
taxes, which are higher out
Oh,
now.
taxes. Yeah, I
Yes,
didn't hear that.
who
Yes.
likes to do taxes? Nobody.
Uh,
And then, and it's a hustle, right? I own my own business, and largely how much money I make every year is falls on me and solely
mhm.
me. And so constantly hustling, constantly, finding new clients, making sure I'm relevant, all that stuff. It's fun, don't get me wrong. It is
But
fun,
it's a
but
grind,
it
it
can
sounds
be a
like.
grind. Yeah, it can definitely
Mhm.
be a grind.
Okay. Yeah. Now you recently did a photo shoot at my kiddos preschool.
Hmm.
And they turned out lovely. So thank you. We
Yeah.
already got those photos off in the mail to the grandparents.
Oh, perfect.
But it wasn't like the standard blue screen photo. You did, I think you already said maybe the name of it, but it was like a personalized photo that had like the black backdrop. So I wanted to chat with you in case people haven't seen these photos or they're just now starting to see them. If you wouldn't mind talking about that style of photography, because I think it's gaining in popularity, and what other like portrait styles that like are out there.
Yeah, sure. So one of the big things that I do is school portrait photography. And basically it's my take on your traditional school picture, which often is forced smiles, harsh lighting. I know like the flash never ceases to surprise my kids every year that they get their
Uh-huh.
photo taken. They always look surprised. Cheesy backgrounds, they're just exactly the same as when we were in school, right? And
Uh-huh.
so my style is more relaxed. I use just a plain black background usually. Sometimes we do white backgrounds or a specific color if a school has something specific that they want. But it's very, very plain. And I do that so that I can focus on the child. And I like to get a broad range of emotions and pictures if I can. Some kids
Some
just
kids are
have
stoic.
one look and that's it. But
That's great.
I work really hard to, get the kids' true personality to come out because I mean, as a parent, that's the kind of picture that I want, right? I don't want a picture of my kid forced cheesy smile looking
Ah,
uncomfortable,
that is
right?
Zeke right now. Like I tell you what, every photo, like Halloween photos and that, like we just watch him. We're like, okay, smile for the photo. And he does this funny, I don't even know what this
Yeah,
forced smile is, where it comes from.
I
It is
know.
this cheesy, like almost see one row of teeth, but then one of his lips, like it just looks so not the way he looks, even when he's
Yeah.
smiling.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And all kids have that, right? And a lot of kids who when they walk in front of my camera, right? And it's my turn to take their picture of them,
Uh-huh.
that's what they do. They
At
immediately
first.
do
Oh,
this
okay. Yeah.
cringy, forced cheesy smile. And I'm like, oh, okay, relax, you know? And the other thing that kind of sets it apart too is, I give parents a handful of images to choose from. So I know a lot in school photography, the picture that you get is the picture that you get, and there are no other choices.
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
don't like it, then you have to take the gamble of doing a retake day, So I
Yeah.
try really hard again, depending on the kiddo, to provide a variety of images for the parents to choose from. And so I work with a lot of preschools. I have one kind of K through 12 school that I work with as well,
Oh, cool.
but mostly preschools. So yeah, it's really fun. And I think that parents are really coming around to this new
Different
style.
style. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more authentic, right? And I think that's what we all want when we have a photo of our kids.
I'm sure that the grandparents' initial reaction was like, "Oh, this is different." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, but this is like this looks nice."
Yeah, I think, I think
Mhm.
it looks more like a portrait rather than
Uh-huh.
a school picture,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
And
that's
and
very
that's
good. That's
it
yeah.
seems like a small distinction. You're like, well, aren't those kind of the same thing? But they're really not. In the
Uh-huh.
beginning, I started calling them fine art portraits because
Okay.
um it's more like you have a little portrait session for your kid rather than,
Just
you
a
know,
quick sit in stool. Let
that's
me
right.
pull the background. Oh, you got the colored background, which I don't even think they pull now, but they used
Right.
to, right? Like if you paid for the prettier backdrop, they
Yes.
would like pull the the I don't know what you call it, the projector screen down.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, some of them use a green screen and do it digitally, but then other ones, yeah, they just pull it right down. It's
Pull
like, you
down.
know, when you used to go to like a Sears portrait studio or something, you
Uh,
know. It's funny.
okay. Next question. Other friends that I've chatted with and done interviews, and they run a business, like one of my girlfriends who's a hairstylist. We talked about this question and throwing it out here for you. It
Hmm.
seems that there's this tension of um, this is my profession and friends and family hoping that maybe they can get a deal because they know you. And I'm just curious how you have navigated setting prices and working with friends and family, because I bet there's some tricks to that.
Yeah, there is for sure. I mean, setting prices that's kind of a whole separate conversation that we could have for days and days and days.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of how it relates to friends and family, it really just kind of depends. There are maybe a handful of my closest best friends that I would never charge to photograph their family.
Hmm.
They also don't live near me too, so it's not like I do it every year for them, you know, which I do
Okay.
think makes a difference.
Yeah.
For example, my best friend from college, I mean, we've been best friends for 20 years, and only for the first time this summer, I had the opportunity to photograph her and her family. And it was really, really special. And it was in a special place to them. And it was special to me to be able to do that for her, you know, as a gift. And, it was really, really great. So, you know, that handful of closest friends, closest family,
Hmm.
I would never charge. Everyone else really is hard,
Okay.
you know,
Do you
because you
try and
don't.
just, I guess, have the conversation and like set a pretty good boundary?
Yeah. And I think over the years that has evolved and changed too.
Hmm.
And it also depends on how busy I am. You know, if I have a
Oh,
full
yeah.
schedule,
Hmm.
and available dates are very scarce, then, you know, more often than not, I'm going to have them pay full price. I
Uh-huh.
might send a gift or include something a little bit extra that, you know, I wouldn't just because they're a friend. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think, you know, it's important to me to be seen as a
This is my
professional.
profession. Yeah.
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 And get paid for it. You know, there are few people that you would probably ask who had a more traditional profession, or maybe I should say like an office job or something like that,
Yeah.
where you would ask them to do work for free,
Yeah. I would
right?
be like, hey, you're a teacher. Do you want to teach my kids for
Right,
free?
right, right, right. You know, or like, hey, you're an accountant. Can you
You
just,
want to do my
slip
taxes
that
for
in there?
free?
Right, exactly. Like
Which I'm sure
that.
people ask that question, but
Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I'm not sure. But, you know, I
uh-huh.
think sometimes, and I can see this with a hairdresser too, sometimes when you have a job that you're like, oh, she's just got this little photography business on the side. She's just got
Hmm.
this little thing. It's probably no big deal. Um,
Yeah, I think there's definitely value on your end being a professional and setting just a good boundary. And I loved how you phrased it as like gifting a shoot, because I think
yes,
that also just using the correct vocabulary that clearly defines it. And I bet
yes,
it's like tense to tell folks what the price is. Um, and I think that like me or whoever is the customer, like we can choose to not like we could do photos for cheaper if that's what we
yeah,
need to do. And I bet it's just hard because it's that fine line between profession and being a friend or family to someone. And
yes.
like, it's just a funky space.
Yeah, it can be kind of a gray area, and I think it can cause tension if you let it
Allow it
cause
to.
tension.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, and that's fine. Like I never take offense if a friend will say, "Oh, how much are your photos?" and I give them the pricing and then I don't hear back from them, or they're like, "Ooh, is there anything you can do on that?" And that's
Hmm.
fine. If they don't go with me, honestly, and it used to kind of hurt my feelings at first.
Hmm.
But now it's totally fine. Everyone has a totally different situation that they're going through right now. And
Right.
especially if it's a price situation. If it's somebody that if I feel like I want to extend that gift to them, then I will. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I try to keep it just as like any paying client.
And yeah, keeping it the professional side.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Um, can you give us a glimpse into the process and the hours spent on a single photo shoot? I know you kind of mentioned that the shoot itself is maybe like 15% of your time.
Yeah.
So yeah, would you mind kind of describing high level, like what does it look like on the
Yeah.
backside that nobody sees?
Right, for sure. So, basically, it starts with the booking. Once I get a client booked in, we have a date picked out, they've signed the contract, then we are ready to go. And the first step is to have a conversation about what they want their session to be like, whether it's a newborn session, maternity session, family session. What do they want it to look like? Do they have any kind of location that they're thinking about? Have they thought about outfits to wear? What do they want to do with the images when they're done? Do they want them only for digital? Do they want a photo album? Are they thinking
Hmm.
about framing them? All those kinds of things. We go through soup to nuts, everything about their session.
Hmm.
On the day of the shoot, family sessions are about 1 hour long, give or take. Like I said, newborn sessions, those are a little bit longer because we know newborns have their own
They don't
agenda.
coordinate. Yeah.
So those tend to be, closer to like 3 hours.
Okay.
And then afterwards, really, I have to go through all the photos and select the best ones. I have to edit those. And that usually takes, I don't know, between 3 to 5 hours usually per session, depending how many images there are. And also depending on like newborns, sometimes I have to spend extra time because like their skin is really flaky and I don't do a ton of like Photoshop work. I like to keep it natural, but there's certain things, that you just want to
Clean
get
up.
rid of or touch
Okay.
up. Yeah. Or if we're at a busy park and I have to remove every single person in the background, that's not part of the family. It takes me a lot longer.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I would say, usually every family session from beginning to end takes me about 10 to 12 hours and newborn sessions take about 15.
Okay. If I were looking into a photographer, and I feel like a lot of folks just it's a word of mouth or a proximity, but if I were shopping for a professional photographer to do a shoot, would there be a top question that you would want, like wish that me as a client would ask you, or something that I should be asking and I may not think of?
I think the most important thing, there's two important things I would say. One, make sure you love their style of photography because what you see, if they're a professional photographer and their website is accurate, what you see is what you're going to get.
Uh-huh.
Don't book a photographer that has light and airy beach photos if you want it to be a dark and moody photo shoot, right?
Oh, yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
or if you see a photographer who has, bright, realistic, colorful photos and you want yours super bright and airy, right? It's not going to be a good fit and you're going to be disappointed. Um, so that's the most important
So
thing. Make sure you love,
check their photo gallery.
yes, for
Okay.
sure. Check their
Okay.
photos, check their portfolio, make sure you like what you see.
Hmm.
The second one is to make sure that you kind of jive with them, right? Make sure your personalities are similar. Make sure that you can see yourself relaxing with this person. And I, kind of have recently implemented in my business to have a phone call up front before you even book the session, because I want to make sure I want to chat with you, right? I want to talk to you. I want to see what you're like. I want you to get a feel for what I'm like. I can be a little bit, loud and awkward and fill the room with words if nobody else is speaking, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and when we do a session, especially with kids, um, I like to keep it active, right? We're active, we're moving, we're doing this, we're doing that. If you are like a very reserved, quiet, kind of person, you may appreciate a photographer who is a little calmer and more reserved, and your
Just
personalities
like,
might
okay, just stand
mesh.
here. Okay, I got
Yeah,
it.
they might mesh a little better. So, it's not, not as much as like a wedding photographer because you are truly spending the day with them.
Hmm.
But I think the more comfortable you are with your photographer, the better your pictures are going to turn out because you're going to feel more relaxed.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, check their gallery, kind of get a feel for the personalities that you jive.
Yeah.
You just mentioned weddings, and when we were chatting in preparation for the show, for some reason I had thought that you did weddings for a time. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting wires crossed from someone else chatted with, but I was curious, why not? Why don't you do wedding photography?
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to, when I first started my business, I was pregnant, right? And so I love wedding photography. Oh my gosh, wedding photographers are, I mean, the best. I have such admiration for them for the amount of hours that they put into a wedding and all the
Uh,
different things you have to shoot and capture, and like high pressure, right? If you miss a moment, that moment's gone. It's not like a family session or a newborn session where you can do it again.
mhm.
So incredibly high pressure, but in the end, I just could not afford to be away from my baby all day. It
Yeah,
was not something I wanted to do. It was not something that as a family that we wanted,
that demanding of a
for us.
schedule, it sounds.
Yeah. Yep. And also like, that's your whole summer. Are you going to work every weekend in the summer? I guess we were living in Texas at the time. So it would be, every weekend, like in the fall or in the spring or,
Uh-huh.
and so, it's just a very demanding job. It was much easier for me to work in little bits and pieces and 1 hours here, 2 hours here,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So yeah, that kind of just life timing. If I had maybe had an opportunity to pursue the profession before I had kids, I
Yeah.
definitely would have experimented in wedding photography.
I'm kind of wondering because it does sound like you have some admiration for the level of effort and that if this is
Yeah.
going to be something that you might explore in like a decade,
I mean, I
post
never say never,
kids.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
do have to say it is a physically demanding job as well. To be on your feet for 8 to 10 hours,
Oh, yeah.
photographing people. I know a lot of photographers, I'm 41 this year. So in another 10 years, when my kids are, in high school and start to get in college,
Yeah.
for me to be
Maybe you wouldn't
starting to
want that
shoot weddings
hustle.
in your 50s. Yeah. I know actually a lot of wedding photographers that as they get to their mid 40s to late 40s, they are starting to transition to family sessions, branding sessions,
Oh,
things that are not as physically demanding.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there
it's not,
actually is almost like yeah, like you would do the hustle of wedding photography and the glam and the intense schedule in
yeah.
your earlier career. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Things you don't think about, but I know lots of wedding photographers who need like a very hot Epsom salt bath after shooting
Oh.
an entire day of weddings.
Yeah. Now have you dabbled with shooting on film? This was a question Bill threw in. Because I've never heard of it, but he said like some folks are like very particular that they really enjoy. I don't even know what shooting on film is. I imagine he means like you're running a video and then you take the pictures out of the video.
I mean, when you think of typically what people mean when they say shoot on film is old school photography, right? Like grabbing a roll of film.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you can.
not what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you can still. I mean, if that's what he's thinking, if he means traditional film, when you say film photography, that's what I think of. You grab a roll of film, Kodak film, you photograph it on a camera that's not a digital camera. You have to send it out to a lab to get them developed, and then generally the lab will scan them for you, so you do receive them digitally. But the look of a film photograph is way different than a digital photo.
Interesting. Okay, that's probably
Yeah.
what he meant then.
Yeah. Or maybe he means video. A lot of photographers are now including video with their shoots too, but I don't, but a lot of people do.
Interesting. Okay. So I had this thought years ago. I don't have a camera. I've never done any photography classes, but I like was thinking if I were to ever do photography, I would make my niche that I would do a photo shoot and I would give you only 3 photos. And they would be the absolute, my top pick 3 photos. And if you didn't love them, I'd be willing to give you another 3. Um, but my thought was some folks seem to be inundated with photos with slight differences from a photo shoot. And it's kind of overwhelming for like me looking at a photo shoot because I don't really see the differences. So I'm just wondering, you professional photographer, what do you think? Could I be successful, or do you think that this would totally fall flat, or like what am I missing? Would it be too much time on my part to do something like that?
I think the biggest thing that you have to look at here is how much money are you going to make giving somebody 3 pictures?
Oh,
How
okay.
much are you going to be able, how much will somebody pay for only 3 pictures? Right.
Okay.
And then in order to get those 3 pictures, are you going to pick the best out of a 15-minute mini session? Are you going to pick the best out of an hour long, custom family session where they have time to really get comfortable and relaxed and show more genuine emotion?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing. You have to kind of look at the cost benefit analysis and what the market will sustain for what they'll pay for only 3 pictures. I do
Okay.
agree that, it can be overwhelming to receive a huge gallery. Confession, I am an overshooter and I deliver really big galleries. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I know, it can be a lot. Over my years, 10 years in, I think I have gotten better at really narrowing down the images and trying to cull them down so that it's not so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But the funniest thing here, and that I've found, and this may be a hiccup for your business plan, is a lot of times my clients' favorite pictures are not my favorite pictures.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I see that, I love seeing that, honestly, because I have some that maybe are a little bit more artistic or full of emotion or of huge laughter, which are really fun, but they prefer,
And they wanted the more put together, like
yeah, maybe
slightly
they want the
reserved.
portrait, right?
Oh,
Or,
okay.
and even with moms particularly, we tend to be very self-critical, and I will, include a few variations of poses because I found that some moms really love the way they look or kids look in one. And even though
Uh-huh.
it's a slight difference, they hate the other one. They're like, oh my God, that one is so
Really strong
unflattering.
reaction.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, that's one reason why I tend to include, more than one. And, um, the way that I'm running my business now is that I actually go through all the photos with my clients, and if they want to buy digital images, they can pick from different size packages. So if they want to just pick their favorite 15, that's fine. I'll help them go through it and
Oh,
pick those favorite
okay.
15. If
Yeah.
they want to buy all of them, they're like, I just
The
love them
full
all.
package.
Then
Yeah.
great. They can have that too. So it's not so overwhelming. I kind of hold their hand a little bit because I do know that it is a little bit overwhelming for people to get a whole gallery and not know
Yeah.
what to do.
That's interesting though. I like those tidbits there and that idea specifically about I may be like if I theoretically were to do this, which I'll stick to podcasting. I'm too old for this. I'm not even that old. What am I saying? But the idea that like I would pick 3 and I'll be like, these 3 are just so top notch. And then like the eye, it's in the eye of the beholder. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, that's a terrible angle for me. So
Yeah.
I would be giving them like 3 photos every week for probably
Right.
months.
Right. Right.
That's a good point. Okay, so let's see. In the age of iPhones, this will probably be our last question for time's
Mhm.
sake. In the age of iPhones and a camera in every pocket, what sets apart a professional photo shoot?
So I have to say the best camera that you can have is the camera that's on you. I absolutely use my iPhone all day, every day to photograph my kids,
Uh-huh.
especially as they get a little bit older. They have less and less patience for, posing for pictures for me. But, the biggest reason that I can say is because you are going to get an experience. You are going to have an hour of bonding with your family, playing games, connecting with them, loving on them. And you have basically hired an artist to photograph you while you get to do that. And one, I can't think of a better way to connect with your family, especially since everybody's so busy in school and sports and all these things, to spend an hour with your family for a family session and just really, that's your focus, right? Like what a gift that is. And not only that, but you're going to receive an entire album or digitals or whatever it is of beautiful photographs of you and your family, you, including mom, biggest thing there, right? How many times have you
That's a
asked
really good point.
grandma or a friend or whatever to take a picture? And it's great in the moment, right? But let's set aside some time to really get some images that
Savor
are
the
going to
moment.
last. Yeah, they're going to
Yeah.
last a lifetime too, right? And
Yeah.
on that note, also, I encourage you to print your photos because honestly, everyone's photos, and I'm guilty of this too, they live in the cloud, they live on hard
Yes.
drives, and that is going to go bad, or when you pass, your kids are not going to have
They're
a
not going to have it.
password. No.
Right. That's a good
So,
point.
print your photos. The better quality you can get, the better, the longer they'll last. But even if you have to, do like a Shutterfly or Snapfish or MPix is the one that I like to use for my clients. Well, for their consumer products. If
And
they're not going to
picks.
order through me, that's who I suggest. I always
Okay.
suggest ordering through me first. But yeah, it's just a really beautiful way to document your family.
Yeah, I really like what you just shared there because I'd not thought about it like that. In just snapping a quick photo, like just one quick photo to get it documented and continue on versus the idea of a full hour. I mean, so I do some meditation and 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes is like, whoa, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I'm just imagining like, wow, like setting aside a whole hour and like you said, it's like you're getting these snapshots of this moment in time, but that is actually a good bit of time to focus, right?
Yeah. Focus on your family, I think, and in a quality, meaningful way, right? That's going to be really fun.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to play games. Like I said, you're going to play games. You're going to give them hugs and kisses. And, it's just a really intentional way to spend your time. And at the same time, you get the benefit of
Really,
documenting it.
really good quality photos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, awesome. Let's wrap up. Where can people find you?
So the best place to find me is probably either on my website, which is tracylphotography.com.
Okay.
And then the second place I'm most active is on Instagram. And that's just Tracy L Photography.
Okay, so both are Tracy L Photography. I will put that in the show notes for
Great.
everyone. And definitely, if you are in the Florida area looking for a photographer, go check out her gallery. Throw back to that earlier question. Check out the gallery, see if you like her and
Exactly.
her style of photos, and then connect on the website or on her Instagram. So
Great.
awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Yeah. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the spirit of nuance, I hope you found something that you could agree with and you could disagree with, and still choose to lean in. Give us a follow, rating, and review, and consider sharing this episode with a friend to continue the dialogue and help us grow. Until next time.